Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the monthly digest, where I talk about all the media that I consumed this month. I guess technically this time it's going to be both the months of October and November, and very soon another video will come out for December. But these videos, I decided to move them to the other channel. Check out Elite Ari if you're interested. They're in a scripted format there, very short, like 2 to 3 minutes, but I had enough of that, so I'm back, okay? We're going to be doing these in the exact same format as before, unscripted, blah, 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 you get the point. Let's just get right into it, I guess. So, first up, in the month of October, we had DieBuster. So, this is an anime that is like a sequel in a way to Gunbuster, which is something I talked about, I don't know, a few months ago, I guess. I really loved Gunbuster. I gave it a 5 out of 5, one of the best things I've seen all year. And DieBuster was absolutely not anywhere near as good. I don't even think they're honestly comparable at all. Just in terms of everything, like it visually looks different. I would say visually looks worse. Story-wise, it's very different, and story-wise, I would again say it's much worse. Character-wise, not very many interesting characters in this at all. But you know what? Overall, it was enjoyable. That was my general take. Now, I'm not going to go too depth into this at all. Basically, I think I'm actually just going to end it there, pretty much. So if you're interested, there was like a full discussion I did with Kyle and It's Mir on Kyle's second channel, Secondary NT. So go check that out if you're somehow only here for my DieBuster thoughts, I guess. But yeah, I think my big takeaway was basically from that discussion was that I think I probably need to rewatch DieBuster because when I was talking to them, I felt like I basically did not remember anything that happened. I don't know how this happened. For some reason, I just feel like the show just went over my head, even though I don't think it's like that complex or anything. Maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention. I don't know. But basically, I don't know. It was an okay time, not comparable to Gunbuster in terms of anything, but I should probably rewatch it, honestly. But that honestly is all my thoughts on DieBuster. So go check out that video if you're actually interested in more of my thoughts. But next up, we have Valheim. So this is a game. It's 161 hours of playtime for me to get through this. I played this with 2 friends over the course of many months. So I started this in May and then finished it in October. Just I guess if you're not aware of what Valheim is, it's like a survival game kind of. There's like building elements and stuff, and you gotta explore the world and kind of collect resources and fill a hunger bar and all that basically. Well, not really a hunger bar, I guess, but you get the point. It's like you gotta survive somehow. And it's a pretty popular game. I was kind of always interested to play this because this is kind of my more like, I guess this kind of is like a genre of game that I like, which is more like building stuff to kind of survive. And there's like some elements of exploring, and the world is kind of malleable. And I tend to like things like this, like Minecraft or Terraria. And I'm sure there's other games like that I like, but this is definitely one of those games. Ace of Spades, that's another one. But overall, this was a 4 out of 5. So I think this is a very good game. Obviously, I played 160 hours of it, and I happily could have played more probably, but we wanted to kind of move on. We've been playing it for quite a while. But yeah, so I guess generally, like the positive kind of elements of this game are just the general vibe, I would say, is the first thing, where I like the way the game looks. I like the way it feels. I like the soundtrack. I like the way you move around. I like the aesthetic, like in the not medieval times, Jesus, the like Viking times and stuff, or I don't even know if it's Viking times or whatever, but it looks good. I like it. Generally, that's like the first thing. I like the vibe of it. I like the world. Now, the world, as far as I understand, is like generated, so every time you play, it's going to be like a different world. And I have played this like once in multiplayer, and I like started playing a little bit with my single player. I got through like to the swamp stage, whatever you would consider that, like iron or whatever. And those were 2 different worlds, and I really do enjoy the exploring aspect of this game. Like the world is very different. It's also very large. Like I guess one element of the world that I like a lot is actually the laborious nature of like trying to try and ship resources from one place to another. Like at some point, basically, you're going to have a base, or maybe you can have like multiple bases. And at some point you can, for instance, have teleporters that will let you like instantly teleport between different locations in the world. But then you're going to have limitations where like, oh, I want to go collect some iron, which is like really far away. But I can't teleport that back because you can't teleport resources like that. So it would involve, like, if you want to ship iron from the swamp to, like, your Meadows biome or something, that could be, like, a 10-minute journey on a boat, for instance, and you can't teleport that. So I really like that restriction, basically. It makes it feel like every time you go to collect resources, it's like a journey. It's like an adventure, Like, maybe you can teleport to where the actual iron is, but then once you've mined it and you've collected it and put it on a boat, you have to, like, sail the boat back. And it takes time, and it feels, like, rewarding in a way. I really like that element of this game. And the world of this game, I guess. It's really cool. I guess also, I guess this, I probably should have started with this, but the biggest appeal of this game to me, I guess besides like the shoveling of the resources or traveling or whatever, I know I keep saying shoveling, but is the building, like crafting, not crafting, I guess, not really that, but like the building of houses and stuff and constructing buildings and like kind of designing your own little town and stuff and building fields, and that's like the element of this game that I like a lot. It's obviously what I like in things like Terraria or Minecraft as well, and even less, I guess less so in Ace of Spades, but also kind of in that. I like it. It's fun. It was probably what I spent most of my time doing, honestly. But yeah, I really like the building elements of this game. I think if anything, maybe the one drawback of the building is that it's somewhat physics-based, a little bit. But as far as I understand, when you're building a house, for instance, you're going to have fundamental resources that you can use to construct like say the walls of the house or the structural frame of the house. You're going to have like wood, you can have like stone, you can have like, I think like iron or reinforced iron or something like that. And as far as I understand, the physics of this game are basically like each resource has like a certain strength to it. And that strength is purely like how many blocks off the ground can this resource like carry materials before it'll start breaking. Like if you have like iron poles or whatever, you can go like 7 blocks high. And if you keep going higher, anything you place above that will just crumble basically. And that's fun. It's kind of like a cool restriction to have when you're building things, and it like forces you to design things certain ways. But I think it would be much cooler if there was like actual physics. Like for instance, having like an L-shaped bar that like goes up and then left, like it should be much like less stable at the end of the L because of like torque or whatever, like the distance, the force times the distance or whatever, then it would be like at the top of the pole where it should be like really strong. Adding physics like that where it like actually makes you kind of forced to think about like real world like architecture and like engineering and stuff, that'd be really cool. Now obviously that's probably like really hard to do and there's not many games that do stuff like that, but I think this game's building would absolutely benefit like night and day from something like that. So anyway, that's, yeah, the positives. Now I have some notes on negatives. Obviously this has also been a while since I wrote these notes, since I wrote this back a while ago in October, or November, I guess probably. But one of the biggest issues in the game is probably just an issue because it's still in open access, early access, sorry, which is that the lighting of the game, firstly, it's pretty dark, and there's no option in the settings to increase the brightness, which is like quite a hassle. So if I actually wanted to like kind of improve my experience, I'd have to increase the brightness of my monitor, for instance, which would then involve like having to, you know, change it back when I'm like done playing the game. And it was a hassle. I just never did that. So I suffered through, you know, very dark like times trying to mine iron in a cave where it's like incredibly dark and I can't see anything. So that was a hassle. But secondly, even in light areas, or I guess like, forget that, like nothing to do with light areas, but when you want to light a place up, there's like, you have a few options early on, and for I guess the majority of the game, you have like torches or like, I guess like lanterns and stuff which you can place down. And these just don't, firstly, they don't light up enough. Like they probably should cover a broader area is like my first thing. Like it leaves a lot of patches and you kind of need a lot of torches to kind of like light up a large area. And also they require refueling. Like the torch, for instance, I think you can take like 4 fuel or 4 resin or whatever it is. And that lasts quite a while. I don't know how long, I would have guessed, like maybe like an hour or 2 or something. Actually, maybe more than that. But it's just a hassle to like play a few times and then have to go around and like relight all the torches and stuff. Like I think it would be much better if they were infinitely fueled or whatever. But I guess later on you kind of get like wisp lights and other things like that last forever and like that will be light up forever. But they're kind of also a bit annoying because they like don't light up that much as well, but they also have like particle effects and I don't know. Basically, I think the lighting in this game could be greatly improved. And it is like a small annoyance that like when you're playing this, it's like, oh, come on, like, do I really have to turn my brightness up on my monitor? Do I really have to like light these torches every time I open the game? Oh my goodness. So that's a small issue I have with it. Another thing I guess is also kind of with visibility, which is that the Mistlands it has a cool concept, which is that it's a particular biome late in the game. I think it's like the second last biome or third last biome or something. And it's covered in mist. So whenever you go in there, you can't see anything basically until you get a like a wisp light or something, which is like an item you attach to your inventory or you like place in your slot or whatever. And it like kind of pushes the mist away from you. So it kind of lets you have visibility in this otherwise like in biome where you can't see anything. Now, that's cool. I like the concept. In execution, it's still very annoying to traverse the Mistlands. Firstly, it's a very dangerous biome. So even if you're like ready for it, it can be like kind of, oh my gosh, there's like things everywhere and I'm going to die. But I feel like just the mist is like, it's cool, but it's just more annoying than it's worth, I think, honestly. I think the Mistlands would be cooler if maybe the mist was like in, not maybe the entire biome, but like certain areas maybe. Like maybe if you're like attacking a certain stronghold or something, like maybe it would be good to have mist there, but like nowhere else. I don't know. It's a bit annoying, basically, the mist in the Mistlands, but that's one thing. And I guess the final kind of issue I have with Valheim is the combat. It's very basic, which is good. Like, I think it's fine. Like, I don't necessarily like think it's a bad combat system or anything. It's fine. But I think it's incredibly simple, which is like you can hit, you can parry, and you can like roll. And I think that's basically it. Like, I guess maybe you can block as well if you have a shield. But which is fine, I guess, if you're just fighting the grunts in the world or whatever. But when it comes to like, oh my gosh, guys, we're going to build up and fight a boss here. And then fighting the boss is kind of like the same kind of pattern every time you fight a boss. And it's like, oh, you just like hit them and then run away and then hit them and run away. And sometimes you like try and parry, but it like fails a little bit. It's a little repetitive, okay? I don't have a major issue with it, but you know, I think there's a bit of room for improvement there, especially when it comes to like fighting bosses and stuff. But that is Valheim. Overall, love this game. I'd recommend it to anyone who kind of likes survival games. Not that I've played that many, but I loved it basically. So next up, we have, I guess, the final thing for October. You know, I barely consumed anything in October, but this is a second reread this year of Old Dragon's Tale. So pretty crazy. But I guess the reason I did this is that on this channel, me and Bacon went through Mushoku Tensei, and this is a prequel to Mushoku Tensei, and we just read through it again. Now, I don't have anything to say on this. If you want to hear my thoughts on this, go watch the video with Bacon, or watch my previous digest where I talked about my thoughts on Old Dragon's Tale. It's a 5 out of 5. What can I say? Nothing has changed. I love it. It's a great story. One of the best parts of Mushoku Tensei. There's a lot of really interesting elements to it. I'm not going to spoil it in case you're here and you're like, oh, I don't want to know what happens, you know, Mushoku Tensei spoilers. Just go watch the video if you actually want to be spoiled, I guess. But good. Love it. And it was really fun reading through with Bacon. But that's the October digest. Now, in terms of the scoreboard here, I should be able to point to it. Here we go. We have DieBuster in number 34, so toward the end of the 3 out of 5s. Now, I feel like that would probably significantly jump if I were to rewatch it and understand it a bit more, or pay attention a bit more, perhaps. We have Valheim, you know, toward the top of the 4 out of 5s. I really enjoyed it. Honestly, a 5 out of 5 experience, just like all games where I play with my friends are. But 4 out of 5, I think if I was to just play it individually, you know, or as a whole, I guess. And I guess that's it, because, yeah, Old Dragon's Tale is a reread, so I'm not going to put it on here. But that was the October digest. But now we're going to continue straight into the November digest. So all the stuff that I consumed and finished, I guess, not consumed, but finished in November. So first up, we have YuruYuri. Now let me scroll to my notes here. For context, YuruYuri is a poll winner, not a poll winner, I guess. So what am I, blind wave? YuruYuri is a thing that was spun on the wheel, which is something that I spin every time I finish something now, I guess, which is a bunch of options that people have suggested to me to watch on my website. So if you go to elitari.com, you can suggest stuff for me. And if you get spun on a wheel at the end of the month, or whenever I finish consuming the last wheel spin, then it gets selected and I have to watch it. So this was something that I absolutely would not have watched unless it was recommended to me. And you can probably tell, firstly, I guess it's an anime, 6 episodes long, and I watched it on the, well, I guess I just finished it on the 12th of October. I couldn't be bothered to figure out when I started it and everything. But I ended up watching 1 season of this because I wasn't much of a fan. So this ended up getting a 2 out of 5. Sorry, not, I was going to say 3, but 2 out of 5 because it was it was incredibly boring is what I would say. This is not the anime for me. It's basically a slice of life with, I don't know, you follow these like girls in, I don't know if it's like middle school or high school or whatever the terminology is, but they're basically girls living their life, and it's like comedy, and there's like weird, I guess the weirdest thing to me is that it's like weirdly like adultish or like lewd in its, not it's in visuals or anything like that, but it's in its humor, and like kind of the characters are like, they feel like, they just feel weird. It's like, these are strange characters in terms of like, they feel like they're older than they are or whatever. It's like weird. I don't like it. It's not like it's strange. I don't know. But yeah, boring, weirdly lewd and adultish humor stuff. There's a few fun things in the show, I guess. Like and again, I might have just missed it because I honestly was a bit checked out of the show, but there's like this whole, I think one of the characters is basically like an author, or like they create something. I think it's like an author of a book or like a manga series or something, which is basically the screenshot here in the background, which is like, there's this alternate story going on with like the characters in this like fake universe that this character has made kind of look like the characters in the actual like quartet of characters in the main show. And I think it's fun. I think whenever this like kind of storyline comes up, it's always funny. I enjoyed it. It was a good kind of like side story kind of gag thing that was like going on along the entire series. I like this. I guess also I did like the I don't know what you call this, but like at the beginning of every episode, the main character, who is kind of like a non-character, which is kind of a cool gag, the fact that she's like the least important, and she's aware that she's like the least important, even though she's the main character. She kind of comes on the screen and like introduces the episode and has like a unique intro to each episode, talking about some gag that is like relevant to the episode. That was kind of cool. I like that. I guess also there's production wise, like every now and then there was like surprisingly good animation in points that there didn't have to be. So I don't know, like production wise, it was like pretty good. I like the voice acting, voice acting was great. Also I guess production wise, I love the OP and the ED. Firstly, the OP, it like says the lyrics of like the names, like you whatever, YuruYuri. It's like really great. I love the song. It's fantastic. And the ending is like really cool as well with the character. I honestly don't remember the ending that well, but it's like, I remember it starts off and they're like, yay, whoa, yay. And I'm like, this is great. I love it. Simple lyrics, fantastic. I love the ending and the OP basically. Oh yeah, I feel like I'm talking so fast. Oh my goodness. What else is there? Slice of life is fine. Oh yeah, so yeah, the slice of life elements are fine. Sometimes I enjoy watching slice of life shows. Not that I've seen that many, I guess, but the more larger issue here for me is definitely the complete lack of continuity across episodes. There is basically none. Like, I'm sure there's like some minor things you could be like, oh yeah, at least the characters, like their hair doesn't change between episodes, like in terms of length or anything, or hair color or something. But basically every episode feels like you could just like start at this episode and you'd basically understand exactly what's going on. Like there's one episode where I don't remember the details, but it stood out to me because like this is kind of dark here, where like one of the characters like basically like assaulted this other character by like they like pinned them down and like kissed them or something when they didn't want to be kissed, and they like looked at the camera and they're like all depressed and stuff toward at the end of the episode. And then the next episode starts and I'm like, oh my god, are they gonna like follow this up and they're gonna have like an awkward kind of dynamic between these two characters now? But no, it was done. It was like, oh, we just like, that never happened and we're not going to address it or anything like that. So I don't like that kind of lack of continuity. Now I get it's probably like a gag and like this is a comedy show and everything, but I kind of like, I was invested. I was like, oh, this is like kind of crazy. I wonder where it's going to go from here. And it just didn't follow it up. And I feel like that happened a few times throughout the show. So that kind of bothers me as well. But what else? Let's see. Miscellaneous notes. Oh, there's one character in this that I love, and this is kind of like a gag, but it's like the funniest gag, and he got me every single time, which is the student council president in this just doesn't speak. She like, I think she like moves her mouth or whatever, but no noise comes out, and she's like, and she has like her like second in command or whatever, and she is like her interpreter, and she like understands exactly what she's saying and she can hear everything, but no one else can, and we can't as the audience. It's fantastic. And I laughed every time it happened. That is definitely my favorite character, the student council president who like doesn't talk, or you can't hear. I guess she does talk, but fantastic. What else is this? The amusement club episode toward the end was great. So yeah, I think there was like it was basically toward the end of the episode, there was more of like a sentimental kind of thing where you like follow their backstory and you see them when they're younger. You actually find out that like the pink-haired girl who met them in high school was actually like there in their childhood, and she was like a menace or something. And that was kind of cool. And I think it's like a little bit sentimental, where it's like, oh, someone loses their personality, and it's like, oh, it's not the same now that they've lost their personality, and we want the old person back. And yeah, that was probably my favorite episode. Even just thinking in retrospect, that was pretty good. Oh, the other thing, there's like two things here. Firstly, yeah, the main thing is that I can't believe this, but I got toward the end of the show and I didn't recognize anything. I was like, oh, I don't know anything about the show. And then out of nowhere, one of the characters, the blonde one, I don't know what her name is, but she dresses up in a tomato onesie, and I was utterly bewildered. I was like shocked, and I don't know if that's the correct use of bewildered, okay, but please forgive me. But because that tomato onesie is like a VR chat avatar that I had back in the day. And like for a long time, I was like, oh my god, this like cute little tomato onesie that I had like in VR chat, it's from the show. And it like recontextualized everything. It was like, oh my god, this show is like famous. Like this random avatar I had is like from this. So anyway, that was like a shocking moment. And I was like, man, I'm so glad I watched the show, because now I have context for this random avatar I used like back in the day. But anyway, the final actual note here is that honestly, I might actually watch season 2 one day. I am interested. It wasn't terrible. It was a 2 out of 5. And I did watch like the first like scene of the second season. And it like did intrigue me mildly. Like I think it was like they were in like a big theater and there were like people, and I don't know if it was like a mech or something. It looked different. And I was like, oh, this is like mildly interesting. Maybe one day if I have nothing else to watch, maybe I'll go back and revisit YuruYuri. YuruYuri. Which is the thing that I was messing up, guys, by the way. When this wheel thing got selected, I kept saying YuruYuri, but it's actually YuruYuri. Now, maybe they sound the same in my accent, but whatever, they're different. Excuse me. But anyway, that's it. YuruYuri, 2 out of 5. Only season 1. I didn't watch any others, but yeah. Next up, we have Fire Punch, which again is going to be something that I'm not going to have much to say about, because if you want to hear my full thoughts on this, go to Kyle Entertainment's second channel, Secondary NT, where we read through and made 3 discussion videos with me, Kyle, Bacon, and It's Mir. So if you want to see what I truly thought about this, go look. But overall, 4 out of 5. So this is a Fujimoto work. Fujimoto made Chainsaw Man, Goodbye Eri, Look Back, Fire Punch, a bunch of other stuff as well that I haven't read. But basically everything he's made so far I have thoroughly enjoyed, and this is no exception. I absolutely love Fire Punch. It is fantastic. Now, I guess if you want like a high-level summary of what I thought about this, if you don't want to go watch those like multi-hour discussions and everything, I think the premise and the opening kind of chapter of this story is absolutely fantastic. I love the world of this story. I love the like sci-fi of this story. I like the mysteries of this story. I like the unpredictability, which is I guess kind of like a Fujimoto thing as well, but I think it's fantastic. There's a bunch of like cool art. There's a bunch of cool direction. I don't know, so on and so forth. Kind of what you would expect from Fujimoto. This is like earlier stuff. I don't know if this is like the first thing he ever did or whatever, but to me, I guess there was like, it was kind of hard, at least initially, to kind of piece that this would be like a work of his. Like the art to me looks very different from something like Chainsaw Man or Goodbye Eri, but apparently not. Everyone disagreed with me in that regard, but to me, it's a bit different. But what else can I say? What do I actually have notes on here? Oh, the only other main note I have is that, for reference, if you've read Fire Punch and you're like, what did Ari think about the characters and stuff? I have 4 favorite characters here. One of them is Neneto. I really like her because she's kind of like throughout the entire story, and she sees different perspectives of Agni over time. I think that's really cool. And she's kind of like our surrogate because she's like the most normal person in this otherwise very wacky universe. So I love Neneto. Neneto is great. I like Sulia. Purely, I mean, not purely, but like a large portion of it is actually probably just the character design. You can see her in the image here. She's, you know, pretended to be the Ice Witch, which is, you know, really cool. But I think that was really cool. Yeah, I guess Sulia's cool because of her design mainly. I'm sure there's other minor things too, but Sulia's great. And then there's Agni. Agni's obviously the main character. I like his design as well. I like his, kind of, he's kind of like he's not an anti-hero. He's kind of like a villain at points as well. I don't, there's a lot to love about Agni, okay? He's a tortured soul, but also he kind of embraces his kind of like, his unethical nature. I don't know. It's kind of cool. There's a lot to love about Agni. And also there's Sun. Now, the novelty of Sun is that like, he is initially set up as this kind of wacky kind of character who is like saying these crazy wacky things, and you don't really take him seriously initially, and you think of him as like a gag character. But then later on in the story, as he gets older and his powers develop more, people take him seriously within the universe, and the wacky things he's saying don't quite change, and his like obsessed nature about like the deification of like Agni only keeps being fueled or whatever. But people take it seriously, and he has the power to kind of enact like great change in the world and danger and murder and everything. And it's kind of cool to see like this character who you have seen through childhood and who was like a crazy kind of person, to see that kind of be transformed into a villain without the character at all really changing, just being given more power. I think that's really cool, and I think it's one of the coolest character things that this story does. So I love Sun as well. But my final like kind of overall thought here is that I do much prefer the latter half of this story. And that's very clear if you look at the discussions. I think there's a big thing that happens, I guess spoilers, I guess all of these digest things are spoilers at this point, but there's a tree basically, and after the stuff with the tree and Judah and Agni, they get teleported to this, well, I don't know if they get teleported, but they wake up in this new place and they spend some time with these new girls and this compound and everything. All that stuff onwards, I think is fantastic. That stuff might honestly be like a 5 out of 5. I really like that stuff. Especially all the abstract stuff, the really cool visuals, and the distinction between Fire Punch and Agni, and all this stuff happens like basically after that midway point, and I think it's fantastic. So I really like the latter half of this story a lot. But yeah, that's Fire Punch and my thoughts on it. So check out Secondary NT if you're interested in more in-depth thoughts. Now, I think finally for this digest, this incredibly short digest, which is actually, oops, sorry, I shook my camera, covering 2 months, so October and November, is Arcane Season 2. So this is a TV show, if you don't know. It's the 2nd season of the famous Arcane. It's 9 episodes long, released in 3 different batches. So it had like first 3 episodes and the middle 3 and the last 3, which we call Act 1, 2, and 3. And I started on the 2nd of November and then finished on the 24th of November. Now, again, like it's a very common trend in this digest here. If you want to hear my thoughts on Arcane Season 2, go check out the other videos on this channel. So I made 3 videos. Each of them were being discussed with Kyle Entertainment. I think they're very entertaining videos. We had a lot of major disagreements or major fights, I guess, and it was very fun. So go check those out. But if you want a summary of what I thought about Arcane Season 2, number one, I enjoyed it more than Season 1. I think it is a step up in most regards, not all regards. I think the ending of Season 1 is better than the ending of Season 2, but overall I very much enjoyed this much more than the first season. Now, I guess at the same time, however, I don't think it reaches the same high as Season 1, which is the 3rd episode of Season 1, which I think is one of the best episodes of anything I've ever seen, like easily in like the top 15 episodes of anything I've ever seen. It doesn't quite get there, but it gets very close with there's basically one scene in the show that in the 2nd season that I think is fantastic, which is the kind of the wrap up of the storyline of Vander, Vi, and Jinx when they all reunite and they're hugging and the music is playing and I'm crying. Oh my gosh, I cried watching Arcane Season 2. Can you believe it? How cringe, but I did. That is a fantastic scene for multiple reasons. Like I think it fits just the way it's portrayed from Jinx's perspective, where you like follow her like uncertainty and kind of fear that life is like repeating itself again. Like the tragedies that she kind of caused back in the day are like repeating itself again. It's all her fault again. Her sister is dying again because of her again. And kind of to get the relief that actually it's not happening. And now she finally gets a second chance to kind of apologize and like kind of move on with her life. And it's like the perfect wrap up to like Powder as a character. And Powder's obviously my favorite character in Arcane. And it's like it's the perfect wrap up to that character. And I did not believe that Arcane Season 2 would be able to pull off something like this, and it did, and it was fantastic. Now, obviously, there's more to the scene, what I like about it, but if you want to hear my actual thoughts on it, go look out at go watch our second act, or our only video on Act 2 of Arcane on this channel, so I had a lot of thoughts on that, but it was fantastic. But I guess other thoughts on Arcane, it's a very, very easy show to watch. I got through this without any struggle. I never checked the timestamps, like, oh, how much longer do I have to get through this episode? It's a very easy show to watch, especially this season. My only real, like, criticism is about the ending, and it's not even about the ending in terms of story. It's more the ending it's more about the ending concerning action, which is that I love reaction videos, okay? I love watching people react to certain moments that I liked a lot in the show. And in this final episode, there's a lot of action, but in that action, there's basically nothing that really stands out to me. Now, there's 2 scenes where in this final episode that I'm like, oh, that was like kind of cool, but like they really should have gone harder on this. Like, this is Arcane. They have like infinite budget. Oh, they don't actually have an infinite budget, whatever. You get the point. They like have a lot of resources. They have a lot of reputation. They have a lot of talent. Like they're producing really cool looking action and everything. But for some reason, the 2 I'm thinking of are the Echo scene toward the end, where he's like running on it. I mean, he's not running. He's like entering the scene on his board and he's like knocking all the robot people away, or the evolved humans out of the way. And he's going and using time travel to kind of keep doing that fight and then like throw the thing at Victor. This is like a pretty cool moment, but like all the hits don't feel very strong and there's like no real cool visuals in a way. And I'm like, oh, this is like feels like an important moment, but it's like doesn't quite get to the like really awesome like kind of action that I would hope from Arcane. That's one thing. And secondly, there's the similar thing to when Jinx comes in on her like hot air balloon or whatever it was, and it feels like it's meant to be a really like awesome climactic moment, and like Jinx is like a good guy now, and she's like helping us, and Echo's coming with the fire lights or fireflies or something, and it feels like it's meant to be much cooler than the visuals actually make it look, which is weird because like Arcane does have a lot of like fun action like throughout, and it feels like it just feels like it failed in this regard, like a little bit, you know. It was still fun, but like there was nothing that stood out, nothing I'm looking forward to in terms of like reaction videos for the action. But yeah, I guess like even just speaking more like generally about the last episode though, I think it was I enjoyed it. I think emotionally it landed very well. I guess particularly like the stuff with Victor and Jace really landed for me, especially Victor as a character. I think this season really elevated Victor as like a character for me. He's like second only to Powder to me, I would say. So I really liked him. And I like the thing I've watched the most, without a doubt, or rewatched the most, I guess, after the fact, has been like Victor's final speech. Now, not necessarily because it's like really emotionally impactful or anything. One element of it definitely is, but I think it's just like really well acted and well worded and like everything like that, which is that he talks about like the fields of dreamless solitude and there is no prize to perfection, only an end to pursuit. And in all timelines, in all possibilities, only you can show me this. That's the bit that like I get a little bit emotional. I'm like, oh, look at this. He sees Jace is like the person who sees him, and they're like soulmates and stuff. And oh my gosh, I like that. That was really cute. And the way it's delivered, timed with the music and everything, it just makes a fantastic scene. So that stuff was fantastic. It's definitely up there with like the Vi, Jinx, and Vander stuff. I think the Vi, Jinx, and Vander like stuff probably is like transcends the show. It's like better than the show itself. But the Victor stuff is also pretty great. I also really, just talking about like standout stuff here, I guess. I really like the scene with Isha running to kill Vanda. Basically, that was really cool. Like having the colors come in and show like, oh, Jinx has like provided a light in her life, and it's so sad that she's like, she thinks that this is the right thing to do, to kind of sacrifice herself. And even just seeing like Jinx's perspective in the scene where she's like she's seeing Isha do what she did, but she doesn't understand that it's like different at this point because Isha's doing it for different reasons and she's aware of what's going on. Whereas when Powder was a kid and she killed Vanda in that state, using the same stuff that the same like hex tech, or not hex tech, whatever, the orbs or whatever that that Isha's doing, she doesn't understand. It's like different in this situation. It's just like, it's perfect. I love it. I almost cried watching the scene. I kind of like almost tear up when I'm watching reaction videos too. But great scene. Singed was also great. Now more so for like, more so like, he's a good actor. Like the way that he delivers his lines and stuff, and he's like that stereotype of that like wise old guy who is like jaded but always like always wins, and because he's always in the background and stuff. He's a scientist, you know. He's cool. I like him a lot, and he kind of wins in the end, which is kind of crazy too. Like everyone else has like a kind of sad or bittersweet ending, but he like gets his daughter back, and he's kind of just got everything that he wanted. And it's kind of cool, kind of subversive in ending. So I like that. And I guess the final thing to say about Arcane Season 2 is that I really like the soundtrack. Now, this is not a thing I usually say, except for when it comes to like anime sometimes, where I'm like, ooh, like the OST was like really good. But in this, I've listened to the actual songs from this show, like all of them, like many times. I listen to it at work. I listen to it when I'm just hanging out at home. Like it's really great. I love the soundtrack for Arcane Season 2, which is an impressive thing for me, who usually just doesn't like music. So well done to Arcane. Now, I guess I just didn't reveal my score, but Arcane Season 2 is a 4 out of 5, definitely. So fantastic. I really liked it. Now, I guess the leaderboard for 2024, we're getting toward the end, only one more leaderboard left. We have YuruYuri all the way in the bottom of the 2 out of 5s. Pretty crazy. I did not enjoy watching this. It was a very boring experience. Then much higher up in the middle of the 4 out of 5s, we have Arcane Season 2. And then even slightly higher than that, we have Fire Punch, which is fantastic. One of Fujimoto's works. We love Fujimoto a lot. But that's it. That's this month's digest. So I guess next month, see you for the final digest of the year. I will be probably doing like a more of a in-depth, like, oh, what am I going to be watching next month, next year? Like, what am I going to commit to watching? And maybe I'll do some analysis and stuff. I don't know, but expect something a bit more, I guess, next month for the digest. But yeah, see you then.